Hello everyone and welcome. This video is going to be on more security, more server security. Before we get to that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the current epoch situation. So I'm really happy to say that Eden has minted its first block. Thank you everyone for supporting me, for delegating to the pool. I couldn't do anything without the delegators, so thank you so much for that, and everyone who has been supportive of me and my work with the videos and stuff like that. First block was minted last night. I wish you all good luck in, to everyone who hasn't minted a block yet, good luck getting one. There's still a few days to go. You might get one even if you're a small pool. Stay positive and best of luck. You might notice something different here. That's Kobe's new house that I built for him to celebrate the first block, as he has also supported me in all of this. He's always here, and when I'm working on my pool stuff, he's always looking out for any mistakes I might make. So before I do something stupid, he's jumping on the keyboard, turning my PC off and stuff like that. So thank you, Kobe. You deserve some appreciation too. With that being said, let's get to the real topic of today's video, which is going to be security. So in the last one, I introduced some basic stuff like disabling password authentication and changing the SSH port. Today, I want to go through some additional security measures, which will be disabling SSH root login. So why do we want to do that? It's because for someone to log into a server, they have to have a username, a correct username. And all Linux servers by default have a root username. So if you have root login enabled by default, the attacker can just specify the username root and they have an opening there. So if we disable that and create a user that we use to log in, then the attacker would have to guess that username first. So as we talked about before, it's an additional layer for the attacker to go through. Other than that, we will also see how to set up two-factor authentication, so that before we log in, we have to confirm that it's us by using an authenticator app. So that's really good, because then in order to get in, you would have to get the authentication code, which is on your phone. So that's a big step, for the attacker to go through. It's very hard to get through that. And then at the end, we're going to install Fail2Ban, which is a software that bans IP addresses that make too many failed login attempts. So let's say they are trying to guess some password and they fail 5 times. Fail2Ban is going to ban that IP address from making more requests, more attempts, and it's going to ban it for, you can specify how long. It can be 10 minutes, it can be 1 day, it can be indefinitely. But yeah, those 4 we're going to implement today, and with that, I think you can consider your server pretty secure, because at the end of that, if we put ourselves in a place of the attacker, we would first have to guess the SSH port, okay, guess the username, then get our private SSH key. Okay, after that, let's say we go in. Already those three are very hard to get. Then we go in, we can also enable an additional password once the SSH key is authenticated. So he would have to guess the password, and then he would also have to get the authentication code from our phone. So I mean, that's pretty hard to break into. So if you follow that setup with your servers, you can be safe that no one's gonna get in. All right, so let's start with the SSH root login. So it might be useful to show the just the sheer amount of login attempts that happen for any server. So you can do sudo general ctl to see the logs of the SSH. We can copy that in, and here we'll find tons of attempts to log in, like every couple of seconds. So you can imagine how many of these attempts happen, and if only one succeeds, then well, your security has failed. So this is the beginning. This is when the server was created. So immediately, the attacks started. And if you want to see the end, and it's going to be a little bit different because of the security measures we got installed in the last video. So if you type EU for the argument, we'll see that the login attempts are mostly accepted because I'm the only one basically making them, and that's because we changed our SSH port, right? So you can see the layers I've been talking about. If the SSH port is not 22, the attacker might give up right there, and as you can see, it's very efficient in doing that. So that was just to illustrate, how many people try to break in, and now we'll go on to disabling the root user. So, I mean, not disabling root user. I mean disabling root user login. So to do that, we'll first create a new user that we will use to log in, and then we'll confirm that we can log in with that user. We're going to give that user sudo privileges, and if we can log in with that user, then we can disable root login so that we don't lock ourselves out by disabling root login too quickly. So we can add user with sudo add user and then username. Okay, I'm gonna put I'm just gonna call it example here. So in the terminal, I can add that user sudo add user example, and it's gonna ask me to set the password for this user, and I'm gonna set it to a password, retype, update successful. Now it's gonna ask for basically some kind of a metadata, name, location, blah blah blah. You can just leave all this, doesn't matter. Is it correct? Yes, it's correct. I mean, you can put values in it if you want. Okay, so user created, and now we need to give that user sudo privileges. So to do that, we do sudo add user, and then username, example again, and sudo again. this will add this user to the sudo group. Okay, add it to the sudo group, and now we need to enable this user to log in via SSH. And what I mean by that is that we need to enable SSH login for this user. So first we'll log in as this user. We can use sudo su and dash and then username. So that will log us in as this user. It might ask you for a password that you set when you created the user. And now we need to create a SSH directory for this user and get our public key in there. So we're going to do create a directory in the home folder of the user called .ssh, and we can go in there, and so there's nothing there, but we're going to create a file called authorized keys. So I'll type it in Notepad first. So we're going to create a file called I can even be more explicit with the path, so .ssh/authorized keys. Okay, in this file we want to paste our public key. So paste this in, and that should work now. I save it. And that should be it. Now I need to test whether I can log in with this user. So I will close this session, and I am going to get PuTTY up. I guess you can see that. Oh, is duplicated. Okay, so I got PuTTY up, and I'm going to go to my USA relay and data. Now I'm logging in as root, and so I'm going to change that to be my username, example. And I'm going to try connecting this way. And there we go, we are in. So now we have confirmed that we can SSH into our server with the with our new user. So what we want to do is disable the root login. So to do that, we're going to edit the SSH config. So SSH config. We will need sudo privileges to do that. But yeah, now we just need to enter the password, as we're not the root user anymore. And if we scroll down, we'll find permit to root user login set to yes, and we're going to set it to no now, and save this file. That's fine. And now we just need to restart the SSH service. Restart SSH, and we can check the status, make sure it's up. There we go, running. And now that's basically it. I can now try to log in with the root username, and it's not going to work. There we go. I don't think like OBS is recording now because I have two PuTTY windows. It's recording the one where I'm logged in as example, but if you heard that little sound, I just tried connecting and it's saying, no supported authentication methods available, because we disabled that root login. So yeah, that's it. Now we can only log in as the user we specified, in my case example. So if you wanted to get access to my server now, you would not only have to have my SSH keys, you would also have to guess my username. So additional layer there to go through by an attacker. That's it for the disabling root login and creating a sudo user. And now we're going to go into the two-factor authentication. Right, so two-factor authentication. We're going to use Google Authenticator. So the first thing is to install it on our Linux server, install the app on our phone, set it up, scan the code with our code, like connect those two together, and then just edit some config to use that method of authenticating in addition to the SSH key. So first thing, so we're gonna call this setup two-factor authentication, and first thing we need to do is install the authenticator. So we're gonna do apt install libpam google authenticator. There we go. We can install that here. We need our sudo password, and yes, we want to continue, and that's going to install here. Now I installed the Google Authenticator on my phone, and I already set some other servers in there, but if you don't have any, there will be like a start screen, and I can just add with the plus symbol, and it asks me like scan QR code or whatever you want to do. So I'll be using the scan QR code. So just have the app ready for the next step. It's just running the Google Authenticator. So Google Authenticator, I might as well write it in the Notepad as well, like started. And now it's going to ask some questions. So do you want the authentication tokens to be time-based? Yes, we do. That means, they expire. So it's not like you have one token. It's like it changes every so often. Now it's going to throw out some a QR code, and I might need to make my font a bit smaller to actually be able to see this, but it's also going to print out some emergency codes. I suggest you capture this entire screen, store it in a file, then print it out somewhere, and have it. So these emergency codes are one-time codes that you can use to access, to authenticate with the Google Authenticator. And they expire after you use them. So this is in case you lose your phone or something like that, so you're not logged out of service. So it's important to have them as backup. Other than that, I'm going to try to scan this code, and keep in mind that if someone scans this code now, they would have my authenticator thing. For their, they could, if they get to this stage, they could install the. So don't let anyone see the code. I'm not sure if it will work. Okay, it did work. So it's not like you need the 100% of the code, and there we go. I have my third authentication server in here, with the username example, and it's going to generate codes now for me every 30 seconds, I think. Now, besides that, I'm going to capture these things in a file. There, I just saved it, so I have it, even though obviously I'm going to change my authenticator because, you know, people are going to see this. So I'm just showing the process as I would do it. So it said, do you want to update your authenticator file? Yeah, we say yes, do some things automatically. Now, multiple users using the same authentication token. Yes, we want to disallow this, meaning that, you know, you only get one login per 30 seconds, because that's when the new code generates. But it would prevent some man-in-the-middle attacks. And the next thing is whether we want to allow some time difference, you know, between the app and the server. It would be best practice to put no and have them perfectly in sync, but I'm gonna put yes because, you know, if there's a slight difference, it might not work. So I'm gonna put yes here. And this is kind of like it operates on a principle like Fail2Ban that we're gonna install later. You know, if 3 login attempts fail, do you want to you know, kind of limit the attempts from this user and prevent it from making more requests, since they're obviously it's not working, so it's probably an attack. So I'm going to enable that, and there we go. That's the authenticator set up now. Now what we have to do is configure the config files to actually use the authenticator when we try to log into our server. So to configure the authenticator to be used, we need to sorry, I'll write in the Notepad. We need to go and edit the SSH config again. So it's going to be etc ssh sshd config, and in there we're going to tell it to use the so-called PAM, which stands for Pluggable Authentication Module, and we're going to change one more thing. I'll show you in a bit. Let's just okay, so this is what I wanted, the second thing I wanted to change. So challenge response authentication, we want to set this to yes. You know, after we successfully authenticate with the SSH, it goes to the next step of challenging it and using the PAM we just mentioned. So now we need to find this PAM thing. Use PAM is set to yes already, and we want it to be set to yes. So those are the 2 things we need to check at this point. They are all fine, so we can save it. I'm just going to check, did I do this right? So challenge yes, and PAM is yes. Okay, it's fine. And now, well, we did some editing to the SSH service, so we need to restart it for those to take effect. So restart SSH. Put it in the Notepad as well for consistency. And now we need to edit the PAM that we just activated. So that's going to be in also etc and under pam.d/sshd. So now we want to edit PAM, and we can comment out this line, this include common authentication. This is going to prompt us for a password, but we might as well leave it on. It's again another layer. What we want to do here actually is add something new. So we want to tell it to use the Google Authenticator. So we can make a comment for our next line that we're going to add to explain what it does, and it's going to be one-time authentication via Google Authenticator. Okay, and the way we're going to tell it is we're going to add, so it's add here, so authentication required PAM underscore Google Authenticator .so, and SO is a common extension for plugins and extensions like this. So we're going to paste this in here. I'm going to copy both of them in the Notepad, and that should be fine. That should tell our server to use the Google Authenticator for authentication. So now we just have to tell the SSH configuration to use the authentication method we set up. So we'll need to edit the config. We'll go to the same config file that we edited before, and paste that in. So what we want to do is add to this file. I'll do it in the Notepad first. So I want to add here authentication methods, and then we're going to list them. So first is public key, and the next one needs to be keyboard interactive. So keyboard interactive is a thing that specifies, you can use your keyboard to do some authentication, which we need to enter the code and the password. So just making sure that there's no typos. I think it's fine. And now we need to restart SSH, as we did some configuration editing. So we'll restart that, and with that we should be ready to test our new secure setup. Now I'm gonna keep this session open because if we did something wrong, we might get locked out. So I'm gonna keep this one open just in case, and I'm going to try to test the setup in a new window. So I'll open the window now. There we go. So it's asking me for the password. That's the first step, and now it's going to ask me for the code. So I'm going to get the code from my phone, from the app. Permission, okay. Okay, I'm gonna try with another code, because maybe I entered it wrong. Now I have to enter the password again, and the code 886. Access denied. Okay, so something is wrong. I'm gonna close this one, and let's get back to our new. So something is definitely wrong, because the password is fine, because it let us go through the password into the verification code. So it's asking for the right things, but something is off. It's probably a typo somewhere in the settings that we did. So since the SSH config is it looks like it's working good, right? It authenticates the key, it asks for the password. So the keyboard interactive is working, and then it's asking for the verification code. Something's wrong with the authenticator. So where we did the authenticator settings, it was the etc the SSH. So let's see. So this is the line we added. Okay. Typo right here. Required. Okay. We need to put this required. Okay. Okay, that makes more sense. For this, we don't need to restart the SSH, I think. So I'm gonna give it another shot. If I can just transfer the PuTTY window. One second, please. Okay, there we go. So again, password and the code. There we go. That's better. Okay, great. I got a little bit scared there. So that's it. That's now we have a really secure setup that even I couldn't get in almost. And so just be careful. You see what happened here. If I closed my session, when I tried testing the two-factor authentication, what would happen? It was wrongly configured, so I wouldn't be able to get in. The codes would all be wrong. So be careful when you're setting up. Make sure you can, when you make changes, make sure those changes work before you cut off, the way you were connecting before. So like when we disable root login, okay, first make sure you can log in as the user you created, then disable root login. The same goes for this two-factor authentication. But yeah, this is pretty secure now. So as I said, like now you need to guess the username, get the private SSH key, guess the password, get the one-time password, the authenticator code. So it's incredibly hard to get into the server now, as I say, even for me, and I own it. So the last thing I want to show you is the Fail2Ban software. So we're gonna install that now, and just a little showcase of how it works. So it's a package that we can just install with apt install Fail2Ban, and just the root password. It's going to install it. Yes, continue. And so basically that's going to limit any login attempts we get. If it fails a certain number of times, then it's going to ban that IP address from making more. We can check that it's running with systemctl status Fail2Ban. And we see that it is running and everything's fine. Basically this works, the way it works is it puts things in jail, the so-called jail. And if we check the rules, the IP tables are like firewall rules. So here we won't have anything. So if we do from Fail2Ban, I mean, if we do grep, I think it will be F2B. The rules that it says sets are going to be labeled with F2B. So if we grep F2B, we see there's nothing there because we just installed it, and we don't get a lot of attempts anyway now on our server because it's pretty decent. So, but if it F2B did ban something, it would say here, destination and reject, or whatever. It would specify the IP address that it banned, and that's it. So we can edit the default settings, although we don't really need to. but if you do want to edit them or at least check them out, you can I think it's, well, let's just go into the folder. So it's going to be etc fail2ban, and what do we have here? We got the JL config. Yeah, so it's like, it tells you, you should not modify this file, mostly. So it has some options here that you can go on and play with, like ban time. Do you want to ban users for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 100 minutes? How many retries, so if it fails 5 times, that's when it's going to ban it, and stuff like that. So after you make any changes here, just restart the service to apply them. I think the defaults are pretty decent, so I'm not going to change anything. But that's about it for the security. With Fail2Ban, we can bring this video to an end. If you follow my first video on like basic server security and then add these additional layers, I'm fairly confident that you will have a setup which is very, very hard to break into. So of course, with stake pools, security is important, as for any server pretty much. So make sure, that's why I wanted to do this video, to get the security done before we go into like other stake pool operations. It's important to have the security base down, as it's really important. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. For my next video, I was planning to do some stuff on rewards. Basically, I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and since we had the ITN and things are different in the ITN and in the mainnet, but it's not just that. It's a complicated subject, how rewards are calculated, and there are different scenarios with regards to the D parameter. So I wanted to make a video on and explain that, because I feel like there's a bit of a lack of knowledge there in the community. So yeah, I want to do my best to explain it, and it's possible that I don't understand it 100%, but still, if someone will correct me, I will be happy to change my mind. Yeah, I wanted to do that video actually with another person, maybe someone, one of the CNTools developers. So we'll see about that. We'll see if anyone is up for it. It would be nice to like have this, because it's not going to be a video on working on the server or anything like that. It's going to be more of a presentation and explanation. So I think it will be useful to have like kind of a discussion with someone about it, and make it in that way easier for others to understand. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I do intend that to be the next video this weekend. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Thank you everyone for the support. You've been really great. Telegram group is great. It's 110 members or something like that now. As I said in the start, good luck to everyone who's still looking to mint a block. I was lucky and I got mine already, so I wish everyone can make one and get that first block in the first epoch. It's a really good feeling. All right, see you guys until next time.